For years, Chip had lived as a peculiar genius, a half-man, half-chicken scientist with unmatched intelligence and an undeniable flair for innovation. His rise to wealth and fame seemed unstoppable. But there was always a nagging question that even Chip himself couldn't answer. Where did he come from? Some said he was the product of a secret government experiment gone wrong. Others whispered of alien involvement, that Chip was a hybrid creature created by beings far beyond human comprehension. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: Chip had always felt an odd disconnect from the universe, as though he couldn't quite hear the deeper truths that others seemed to grasp. Could he hear God? Chip wasn't sure, but he did know one thing: he couldn't stop eating chicken nuggets. At first, it was a guilty pleasure, a small indulgence after a long day in the lab. But as Chip's success grew, so did his cravings. The richer he became, the more chicken nuggets he consumed. People began to notice. His colleagues were appalled. "Chip," old Millie clucked one day, "don't you think it's strange for a half chicken to eat chicken nuggets?" Chip shrugged, a crumb of nugget on his beak. "They're delicious. What more is there to say?" But deep down, Chip wondered, why do I crave these? Is it some kind of programming? The answer came after a Porsche accident. Chip had been speeding down the back roads of Clover Farm, his latest Porsche gleaming in the moonlight, when he lost control and crashed into a ditch. The accident left Chip barely alive, his half-chicken body unable to heal itself fully. Desperate to save him, scientists implanted hydrogel laced with nanotechnology into his brain, a cutting-edge interface that connected Chip's mind directly to computers. The hydrogel saved his life, but it did something else too. It unlocked an insatiable desire for chicken nuggets, stronger than ever before. Chip found himself ordering nuggets by the thousands, piling them up in his mansion like treasure. He didn't understand it. His cravings seemed to come from somewhere deep within, almost as if they were being downloaded into his brain. As whispers spread about his grotesque obsession, Chip began to piece together the truth. Through the hydrogel, his brain started receiving strange signals, alien messages. They didn't come in words, but in urges, overwhelming and impossible to ignore. Was this the work of his creators? Had they designed him to crave nuggets for some unfathomable reason? Chip's once pristine image started to crumble. His Porsche collection gathered dust as people shunned him for his disturbing habits. He became a recluse, sitting in the dark of his lab, surrounded by empty nugget boxes, staring at the screen that pulsed with cryptic data from the hydrogel in his brain. And then one night, it hit him. Perhaps the cravings weren't his alone. Perhaps his creators, whoever or whatever they were, had programmed this obsession as a way to communicate. But what were they trying to tell him? Was there a greater plan? Or was Chip just another experiment in a cosmic joke he couldn't fully grasp? As he reached for another nugget, Chip muttered to himself, "I need to figure this out before the cravings consume me entirely." But the more nuggets he ate, the closer he felt to understanding, and the farther he drifted from everyone else. In the depths of his secret biolab beneath Clover Farm, Chip, the half-man, half-chicken scientist, had made yet another breakthrough. Not content with merely creating chickens that grew luxurious fox fur, Chip wanted to take his project to the next level. With the funding still rolling in from Lockheed Martin, Chip invested in the latest technology and hatched a daring plan. This time, Chip combined fox and chicken DNA with cutting-edge nanotech, weaving microscopic, self-replicating systems directly into the fox fur that now grew on his chickens. The result? Fur that was not only soft and luxurious, but indestructible. The nanotech within each strand ensured that the fur would regenerate if damaged, staying perpetually lush and fresh, no matter how many years passed. Buyers could own a fox fur coat that never aged, never faded, and could withstand any wear and tear. As if that wasn't revolutionary enough, Chip programmed another surprise into his genetically engineered nanofur, an embedded cryptocurrency. Bioengineered, indestructible fox fur chickens turning heads everywhere. Chip wasn't done yet. In fact, he was about to unveil his most ambitious twist yet. In his lab, Chip scratched his beak thoughtfully as he eyed a shimmering sample of the nanotech fox fur he had created. Thanks to the microscopic systems woven into each fur strand, the fur didn't just grow and self-repair, it could also carry data. And Chip, ever the forward thinker, realized he could take this further. What if, he muttered to himself, the fur could also generate and store value, a cryptocurrency of its own. Chip rolled up his feathers and got to work, programming the nanotech within the fox fur to support a fully functional cryptocurrency network. Each strand of fur would contain code that allowed it to continuously mine small units of a digital currency he proudly named Feathercoin. The currency was embedded directly into the fur, invisible to the naked eye, and self-replicating as seamlessly as the nano fur itself. With the currency system operational, each piece of fox fur produced on Clover Farm wasn't just a lifelong self-repairing coat. It was also a living, growing bank account, increasing in value as it mined feather coins over time. Soon, Clover Farm was the talk of both the fashion and tech worlds. Buyers weren't just purchasing a coat, they were investing in a piece of high-tech, self-renewing fur that grew in value, making them part of the exclusive feathercoin economy. Some even started calling Chip's products wearable investments. As profits soared and his Porsche collection gleamed in the barn, Chip leaned back with a satisfied cluck, knowing he had changed the worlds of fashion, technology, and finance forever. Here's the story of Chip's shocking new enterprise and the precedent it set. Chip, ever the opportunist, was always on the lookout for ways to cut costs and boost profits. His latest invention, the furred chicken-fox hybrids, had been a massive success, but feeding them was starting to eat into his bottom line. One day, as he calculated expenses in his secret lab, an idea struck him, a legal loophole that could change everything. Wait a minute, Chip said, tapping his beak. Chicken-fox hybrids aren't really chickens, are they? They're hybrids, and if they're not fully chickens, then feeding them chicken meat isn't technically cannibalism. He immediately set his lawyers to work, and within weeks, Chip had legal clearance to start feeding his chicken-fox hybrids actual chicken. It was cheaper, easier to source, and according to the law, perfectly ethical. The move cut his feed costs in half, and the hybrids thrived, happily gobbling up chicken-based meals without a care in the world. But Chip's legal victory didn't stop there. The precedent he'd set sent shockwaves through society. If partial chickens could eat chickens, what about humans? Courts around the world began to debate the ethics of consuming creatures that were partially human. Chip, ever the innovator, saw an untapped market and pounced on the opportunity. In a bold new venture, Chip began experimenting with crossing humans with various farm animals. Using CRISPR and his extensive biolab resources, he created creatures that were part human, part pig, cow, or even turkey. These hybrids were plump, easy to farm, and technically not fully human. He marketed the meat as ethical human-animal protein and assured buyers that it was both legal and sustainable. The business exploded. Wealthy food connoisseurs lined up to taste Chip's latest creations: ham human burgers, beef man steaks, and even turkey people holiday roasts. Chip's farm became a global phenomenon, with people debating whether his products were the future of ethical farming or the start of a dystopian nightmare. "Look," Chip said in an interview, leaning back in his chair and adjusting his feathers. "These hybrids aren't fully human. They don't think like humans. They're not like us. They're just better meat, plain and simple." But not everyone was convinced. Protests erupted worldwide, with activists arguing that Chip's creations were a violation of human dignity. "They're still part human," the protesters cried. But others argued that Chip's approach was no different than feeding chicken hybrids chicken. The line between what was ethical and what wasn't had become impossibly blurred. Meanwhile, Chip's fortune grew astronomically. His Porsches were now parked in a multi-story garage, and his empire spanned the globe. As he sat in his lab, planning his next hybrid creation, he couldn't help but laugh. "They said I was crazy," he clucked, plucking a nugget from a nearby box. "But I just gave the world exactly what it asked for. A legal loophole, some creative science, and a taste for something different." And as humanity dined on Chip's creations, many wondered, had they crossed a line they could never come back from? Chip, however, was already too rich to care. As the world indulged in Chip's human-animal hybrid delicacies, a new problem emerged. Everyone was getting way too overweight. The human hybrids were so rich and flavorful, people simply couldn't stop eating. Within months, global waistlines expanded and doctors raised alarms about the health crisis Chip's creations were causing. Chip, now richer than ever and lounging in his Porsche-themed mansion, couldn't ignore the backlash. "If people get too big to buy my products," he muttered, pecking at his keyboard, "that for business." Ever the problem solver, Chip clucked with excitement as he hatched his next plan. He would go back to the lab and solve this crisis his way. In his secret biolab, Chip worked tirelessly to develop a groundbreaking solution, a vaccine. This wasn't just any vaccine, it was a fat-obliterating masterpiece. Hidden within its formula was a subcomponent designed to permanently reduce body fat. Once injected, the vaccine would trigger a biological response that melted away fat cells and prevented them from ever accumulating again. "This is genius," Chip said, holding up a glowing vial of the vaccine. "People can eat as much hybrid meat as they want, and they'll never gain a pound. I'll save the world and sell more food at the same time." When Chip announced his creation, the world erupted in mixed reactions. Some praised him as a savior, while others were wary of the implications. Still, the allure of endless indulgence without weight gain was too tempting to resist. Governments worldwide rushed to mandate the vaccine, eager to combat the obesity epidemic. Within months, billions of people had received Chip's injection, and it worked. Body fat melted away like magic, and people everywhere started looking leaner, healthier, and more energetic. Chip's hybrid meat sales soared to new heights, as people realized they could eat endlessly without consequences. But, as with all of Chip's creations, there was an unexpected twist. A small, overlooked detail in the vaccine's code caused strange side effects. People began craving Chip's hybrid meat even more than before, unable to resist its taste. The vaccine had effectively turned humanity into a population of insatiable carnivores, dependent on Chip's food for both sustenance and satisfaction. Chip, of course, knew exactly what he was doing. Sitting in his mansion, surrounded by glowing monitors showing his skyrocketing profits, he clucked softly to himself. "Problem solved," he said with a sly grin. "Now they'll never stop eating, and I'll never stop winning." And as the world feasted endlessly, forever lean and forever hungry, Chip's empire grew to unimaginable heights, leaving many to wonder if the Chicken Man scientist was a savior, a villain, or something else entirely.